It really shouldn't come as a surprise that people actually buy figures for different reasons. And such, the marker of what makes a good figure also differs from one person to another. Some people like to just display their figures, while others may prefer big and clicky toys. What I prioritize when it comes to figures would be their posability. Hence why I loved Legacy Evolution Bludgeon so much, thus me crowning him as my figure of last year. Heck, it's the sole reason for me inserting a posing montage in a lot of my newer videos. Putting figures in dynamic poses and taking pictures of them is my favorite thing to do in my collecting journey. Some people may think it's ludicrous to like Articulation and Transformers figures, but I'm sorry, that's just what I enjoy. It's not like I'm fully ignoring the transformation aspect or anything, because if I am, then my review for Transart Tarantulas would have been way more positive. We've talked about a third-party figure this year that I adored for its posing, but now let me give you an example of such in the Transformers mainline. Greetings people of YouTube, I'm Screaming Star, and today I'll be reviewing the Transformers Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Leader Class Concept Art Megatron. Those of you who are uninformed may be wondering, but Megatron is actually not in the Bumblebee movie? Well, this is actually a concept art design. There were plans to include him as a part of that Cybertron opening scene, but he was cut due to budgetary constraints. But hey, they did make a design for him that looks like pure intercourse. And in turn, they make a figure based on said design. May seem like an obvious cash grab, which it is to an extent, but I really cannot deny that. This figure just clicks with me. I adore pretty much everything here. The design itself, the amount of details present, yes, I even like the transformation to a degree. But one thing I'm not too keen on is the amount of accessories that you get with this figure. Or should I say accessory? Cause this figure only comes with one fusion cannon. I have no problem with how this looks. Pretty much a perfect live action adaptation of the iconic G1 weapon. Integration wise, you can either do the usual forearm mount, an absolute classic, and you can even do the "Join them in extinction" setup. You can attach it on his back and give him a shoulder cannon or an Armada Megatron style underslung cannon. Or if you really hate it and don't want it visible, there's a double hinge joint on the barrel that'll allow you to store it flush on his back. Sick ass accessory, but that's it. I guess the concept art really never had any other weapons to begin with, but come on man, a made up sword or some blast effects could have gone a long way.
Especially with the price we're paying for him.
It's a shame since a figure with this amount of joints will benefit greatly from a melee weapon. So for me personally, I like to give him the sword that came with the knockoff Legacy Tarn, or the mace that comes with the APC bulkhead. Man, the 5mm port system really is a blessing, isn't it? And despite the somewhat doubtful accessory count, this figure pretty much is as well. Is a blessing, that is. At least for me. Though that being said, I do have my minor gripes with the actual design of this guy. Firstly, the head. I'm not a fan of how smooth the helmet is and how muddy the face looks. Wish they would have gone for a more TF Prime inspired design with the clearly defined facial features. Second and finally is my biggest issue with the aesthetics of this guy. That would be his deadly dang diaper. I don't like how this looks. Even from promotional images, I already disliked it. I guess it doesn't look as bad in person, doubly so if you pose him correctly, but still, I feel they could have designed this better to not make Megatron look like he just pooped himself after being scared shitless seeing that an iteration of him looks like this. Alright, complaining time over? Good, cause now I can finally suck this figure off for being the mechanical marvel that it is. Legitimately, every nook and cranny of this figure is jam-packed with mechanical greebles, a lot of which have some sort of painted finish to them that make them pop even more. This is a figure that doesn't get boring to look at, and if you are a fan of highly detailed action figures, then this guy is already up your alley. There's really not much that I can say here. You can just see for yourself how immaculate this thing looks with all of its springs and screws being etched in with the utmost effort. And due to some sacrifices that you'll see later, he ends up looking incredibly clean in terms of kibble management. No backpack, no butt flap, no nothing. Lovely. Let's just say that if you came here for the looks, this is definitely one for the books. That rhymes. Aesthetic is one thing, but functionality on this figure is pretty damn good. On my copy, the right crotch transformation joint doesn't plug in too solidly, but it doesn't hinder my enjoyment most of the time, and I'm sure it's just a QC issue on my end, so I'm not mad about it. Otherwise, he's freaking solid. But what good is a solid figure if you can't play around with it and utilize its joints? Well, fellas, we now come to my favorite part of this figure. We've seen Hasbro do posable Transformers many times before, some of which I've even covered on the channel. But this, this is a bit special. So, His articulation is amazing, great range at the head ball joint, and it can move downwards due to this hinge joint of the transformation. It's kind of supposed to lock in, but it doesn't work very well, but it's fine. Shoulders rotate 360, move out that far. Butterfly joint going forwards, that is awesome. Can go back just a little bit. Bicep swivel, single joint at the elbow that bends in more than 90 degrees, rotation at the forearm and rotation at the wrists, hinge joint at the wrists, great finger articulation with a hinge joint at the index finger and another hinge joint here, and a hinge joint and another hinge joint for the rest of his 3 fingers. Also, because of the transformation, the Fusion kind of has this. Waist swivel, no ab crunch though, which is a bit of a bummer, but I guess it's alright. Front skirts flip forward and the side skirts flip up to allow for a great kick, and if you move the side skirts even more out of the way, oh boy! And obviously goes back a lot as well. He can do the splits! Thigh swivel, single joint at the knee that again bends in a lot. And finally for the ankles, they can move down that far, up that far, and a fantastic ankle pivot. Absolutely stellar amount of posing on this guy. And to check him out in action, let's ask him to strike some poses. My word, this thing is a blast to pose and take pictures of. The amount of joints on this guy probably took up a lot of the budget that they were given to make this thing, which is probably why he's not as big as some people may want from a leader class release. For me, it's a fair trade-off, but for some people, I'm not sure. Well then, why don't we check out some size comparisons? Here's Megatron next to a sizable leader class figure, the Studio Series 86 Snarl. Yeah, Snarl definitely justifies the leader class price point a lot more than Megatron, but I still did not regret my purchase with this thing at all. Here he is next to the APC Toys Transformers Prime Megatron, the only other live action movie Megatron figure that I have, the Byway Revenge of the Fallen Megatron, Studio Series Bumblebee movie Soundwave, Bumblebee movie Starscream. Comparing him to a regular 6-inch scale figure, we have the Marvel Legends Mr. Knight, and finally, a G1 Megatron figure, the YOLO Park AMK Pro Series Megatron. So far, it's pretty clear that the designers have absolutely prioritized the robot mode when designing this figure. It's an ideology that I do respect, but does this mean he's gonna get shafted when it comes to his alternate modes? Well, not gonna lie, it's a bit complicated. To explain why, I'll have to transform him first, so here we go! After a half-neat and half-assed transformation, we have a tank mode that actually doesn't look that bad. Don't get me wrong, this is far from the most cohesive Cybertronian tank out here, but it's not the worst looking either. I'll give it this, it holds together well and it has proper tank articulation, despite him looking weird while using said articulation. I'm glad that at least he's got some well-defined treads to signify that he is a tank-type vehicle. The biggest problem really is the fact that the turret looks like crumpled arms and oh shit, no rolling wheels?
0 out of 10.
In all seriousness, I do find the lack of rolling wheels to be a substantial flaw. Do they really not have enough budget for this? SMH. Still though, as a display piece, he works well enough in this mode, at least in my opinion. For those who think this mode has one too many compromises, well, that's because he's actually got a third mode, for better or for worse. Before we get to that, I believe some size comparisons are in order. Here he is next to Snarl, Prime Megatron, Revenge of the Fallen Megatron. Honestly has a more cohesive looking tank mode. Here's Bumblebee movie Soundwave, and yes, I transformed him just for you guys. Be grateful. Nothing will beat this piece of shit in terms of, well, shittiness. Here's Bumblebee movie Starscream, Mr. Knight, and finally, YOLO Park Megatron. Surprise, surprise, he doesn't have an alt mode. Now, in case you didn't know, Hasbro decided to make this Megatron a triple changer as a reference to Super Megatron and the 2 alt modes that he has in the first 2 live-action films. In concept, this sounds pretty cool, but in practice, well... Alright, I won't sugarcoat it. The jet mode ain't good. It has wings and a cockpit, sure, but kibbles galore, barely any cohesion between parts. This is easily one of the least appealing jet modes in any Transformers figure I've seen. It's not as bad as Bumblebee's always pancake mode or Dark of the Moon Shockwave's dildo on treads. Doesn't excuse this mode for being unappealing though. His size is basically the same as the tank mode, so I won't be thorough with the size comparison segment. Y'all are seeing it right here. I've shown these before, nothing new to see. Alright, so that must mean the triple changer aspect of this figure is a full-on detriment and that I surely don't love this figure as much as I thought, right? Well, how about I'll throw you in a fan mode to compensate for the lackluster jet mode. BAM! This is a gun! It's pretty wobbly, but it looks neat as a Cybertron gun. Plus, it serves as a G1 homage, which is nice. And how about I throw you in another fan alt one in the form of this Transmetals 2 rat trap looking ass, or another in the form of an elephant to reference Gigatron, or another one that resembles the alt mode of Blot the Terrorcon? You see, with the extra joints needed for the triple changing gimmick, it ends up giving this guy so much versatility when it comes to making up fan alt modes. This makes the figure that much more fun to mess with for me, and is my favorite part about this figure aside from the posability in robot mode. Because it's just fun to play around with this many transformation joints and just see how many ridiculous modes I can squeeze out of this guy. I won't leave instructions for any of these because I consider the process in trying to make these fan modes a part of the fun. It definitely is for me, but I don't know if it will be for you. Same goes for this figure as a whole. It absolutely is for me, but will it suit your needs as a Transformers figure? Well, let me say that there goes my review for the Transformers Studio Series Bumblebee movie Leader Class Concept Art Megatron. Well, we have unpacked a lot. I think it goes without saying that I absolutely adore this figure for its immense amount of detail and posability, along with the fidgety nature of his conversion that provides extra play options. Is he worth full price? Nope. Even I can admit that the price of admission is pretty steep for what you're getting here. If you are a casual fan who just wants a good-looking Transformer on your shelves and transform it back and forth into the intended alt modes, I recommend waiting for a sale on it. Still a great figure, but he does have issues that may not be easy to overlook. However, if what you look for in a Transformer is the same as what I look for, then I'd say give it a shot, even at full price. Because I'm telling you, this figure is an absolute experience to pose, and is so far possibly my favorite Chug figure of this year. With all that being said, I'd like to sincerely say thank you to everyone who watched this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you've got something to say, leave a comment. And if you like the channel, feel free to subscribe. Farewell, fellas. I'll hopefully see you all next time.
Our planet writhes with thirst. Let the harvest begin!